Chapter 12:25, Counseling. When he heard Miss Justice's slightly bleak and confused words, Klein could empathize with her. This was because he had previously had similar thoughts. After recalling snippets from self-help books, he deliberated and said, "A father's death is so insignificant to the entirety of Lone. One or more cases might happen every day, but to his child's family, it is something that can change their fate. Similarly, if we don't reach the level of an angel, everyone's outcome will be sealed, death and be buried. But this doesn't mean that the time from when we were born to the time we die is meaningless." Audrey nodded slightly when she heard that. She once again said in a self-deprecating tone, "I understand all of this. However, the secrets you mentioned had a huge impact on me, and I couldn't control my emotions. As a psychiatrist, I actually needed someone else to counsel me." Klein smiled and said, "Isn't this very normal? Many times, we can tell if someone else's condition is normal, but we can't clearly see our own problems. Didn't you mention that you and Susie counsel each other from time to time?" Due to the fact that Dwayne Dance had seen Susie, the golden retriever, Audrey didn't hide anything related to her during their chats. Audrey nodded gently and said, "Yes, that's right. I've already straightened my thoughts out. I should do what I can and not leave any regrets." She gradually adjusted her mental state. Klein then said, "It's not just a matter of not leaving any regrets. We might be able to add to the forces that resist against the apocalypse. Compared to the whole, this might be trivial, but even the vastest desert is made up of grains of sand. The boundless ocean is also formed by droplets of water. As long as everyone sends out as much light as the heat inside them, it might bring some hope." Sends out as much light as the heat inside them. Audrey repeated the keywords in J.M. Sparrow's words softly. "Don't quote me," Klein added with a smile. The corners of Audrey's mouth curled up as she replied with a faint smile. "Could it be something Emperor Roselle said? That I don't know. I have to endure a strong sense of shame when flipping through his quotations. I hadn't finished reading it all this time." Klein didn't give an affirmative answer, nor did he deny it. Instead, he said, "Start hypnotizing me. Let me forget things related to the cosmos and only remember the corresponding reminder. A little while longer. I would like your advice on something." Audrey openly made a request. She took this opportunity to recount what she had been doing recently, as well as the difficulties and perplexities she had encountered. "Mr. World, what suggestions do you have? What should I do to lessen the suffering of the people of Backland before the war ends?" As for stopping the war, although she wanted to, she knew that she didn't have the ability to do so. At the same time, she also understood that even Mr. World wouldn't be able to do it. Even if Mr. Fool personally intervened, he would at most be able to turn the situation around. There was no way to stop the war. After all, this world war was essentially a battle between deities. After hesitating for a few seconds, Klein calmly said, "Although the spectator pathway tries to act behind the scenes as much as possible, and although I always keep the words caution and carefulness in my mind for everything I do, and try not to put myself in a dangerous situation." When he said this, Audrey subconsciously thought to herself, "From the various rumors at sea, the descriptions of Fours and the others, and the demigod battle I witnessed, I really can't see the caution and carefulness. There's only dominance and radicalism. To be able to do those things and survive on strength alone is indeed not enough." Seeing that Miss Justice was listening seriously with her green eyes filled with attentiveness, he continued, "In this world, nothing can be easily resolved without taking risks. Sometimes, I do something with the thought that death is a possibility." The muttering in Audrey's heart stopped. She fell silent for a while before slowly saying, "I understand what you mean. There are many times when you can't do what you want while ensuring absolute safety. You can only choose one of them." Klein nodded and decided to let Miss Justice understand the reality of this world better, so as to prevent her from being overly idealistic when she did things. "The method you mentioned just now is the most feasible, with the least risks. The people who can help the people of Backland are the nobles, churches, businessmen, and the royal family." "Why don't we rob Fasek, Intis, and the Fainapotter army of their food?" Audrey subconsciously asked. Klein calmly said, This is because the three armies have already entered the Lone Kingdom's borders. Even if you can escape a demigod's notice and successfully snatch the food, they will not collapse. They will definitely snatch the food from the surrounding people for sustenance. The effects will not be significant in the short term. As for the long term, we might not have the luxury of time to wait that long. When that happened, it was obvious to Audrey who would be the true victims. This was the difference between a war between deities and an ordinary war. Besides, I'm unable to do that. The capacity of Traveler's Bag is limited. It's the same for the teleportation recorded in Leymano's travels. Justice Audrey began to counsel herself as she asked thoughtfully, if I were to really obtain food from the nobles, businessmen, and royal family, what reaction would the church have when they discover traces of my interference? Klein maintained his previous tone and said, a tacit acquiesce. Audrey vaguely felt that this was the answer, but she couldn't figure out the reason. Klein continued, believers are the anchors of the deities. One believer is an anchor point. In this aspect, there is no difference between a noble and a poor person. In essence, no one is nobler or lowlier. Under normal circumstances, nobles and merchants can use their status, power, wealth, and influence to help the church maintain its system and spread its faith. Therefore, they are more important. But in this situation, who is more important, thousands of anchors or millions of anchors? This is a simple problem in mathematics. Faced with the truth of the veil that had been ripped off, Audrey was momentarily speechless. Seeing this, Klein added, from this point of view, whatever you want to do on a wider level has its meaning. You will help the Evernight goddess and the Lord of Storms stabilize their anchors. In the future, this might be critical to resisting the apocalypse. Audrey pursed her lips bit by bit, holding them pursed for a long time before relaxing them. She chuckled and said, only now do I realize that I'm actually a little proud of my status as a noble. Nobility is in your character, not status. Klein helped her finish her sentence. Audrey slowly exhaled and calmed her chaotic inner thoughts. She didn't make up her mind as a result. She casually said, our tarot club and the church. The relationship with the Church of Evernight seems pretty good. Mr. Fool and the Evernight goddess are allies. This question stumps me. I do wish to become allies with the goddess, but she might not be interested. After lampooning a few times, Klein said in a serious tone, you can think of them as allies at the moment. He deliberately emphasized that it was only now, so as to prevent himself from being slapped in the face by reality in the future. At the same time, he muttered the real answer in his heart. Based on the current situation, the goddess was an angel investor of the Tarot Club, the major shareholder. Audrey nodded slowly and suddenly smiled. I was just thinking about what you could be mumbling inwardly when you answered allies at the moment. It must be interesting, just like when we were exploring Liveside. Lady, a psychiatrist isn't suited to joking with a patient on such matters. Is it because we've been chatting for too long in the past half year and have become much more familiar with each other that you've revealed your true nature? Please show some respect to this adventurer in front of you who is famous for being cold and crazy. Yes, I have to say, the spectator pathway's ability to adjust their own emotions is indeed impressive. It was all Leonard's fault that time. Klein was first taken aback before he pretended that nothing had happened as he leaned back into his chair. Let's begin. Audrey immediately reined in her emotions and began to seriously and carefully attempt to hypnotize him. After everything was over, Klein confirmed that Miss Justice wasn't under the notice of the Great Old Ones through the Crimson Star after she returned to the real world. Of course, he had already forgotten anything regarding the Great Old Ones or outer deities. He was just able to confirm that nothing abnormal had happened from Miss Justice's condition. Phew. Klein heaved a sigh of relief. He threw the piece of paper that could awaken his memories into the junk pile and told himself to wait until he became an angel. Backland, bridge area in an apartment. Emlyn White looked at Merrick, who had suddenly appeared in front of him. The former took off his hat and bowed in an extremely gentlemanly manner. What's the matter? Merrick sat on the sofa and leaned forward, his hands clasped. Emlyn pulled a chair and sat down. He smiled and asked, Do you still wish to deal with the important figures of the Rose School of Thought's indulgence faction? Do you have any leads? Merrick asked indifferently. Emlyn was definitely prepared before he paid the visit, so he said unhurriedly, I do not have any clues regarding the person in charge of the Rose School of Thought in Backland. However, after the war escalated, the southern continent's East and West Balam, Star Highlands, Paz Valley, and Hagenti Plains have been thrown into chaos. Many of the Rose School of Thought demigods have emerged and walked onto the stage. They are no longer so difficult to lock onto. Merrick looked at the red-eyed and thin-lipped Emlyn and said, Which Duke or Marquis of the Sanguine are you representing? Am I not allowed to represent myself? Emlyn raised his chin slightly and asked with a smile. Merrick shook his head seriously and said, You are only a Sequence 5. You aren't qualified enough. He had said it so directly that Emlyn was momentarily at a loss for words. Quote from a leading figure of modern Chinese literature, Lu Xun.